Officials in Fox Lake, Illinois, briefing the public as a massive manhunt is underway for 3 suspects in the shooting death of an Illinois police officer earlier this morning. With the help of helicopters and K-9 units, the FBI, ATF, and local police are scouring the surrounding area. Let's set the scene. Earlier this morning, a little before 8 a.m. local time, Lieutenant Joseph Glinowitz radioed for backup as he pursued 3 men on foot in the city of Fox Lake, Illinois. Fox Lake is about 55 miles north of Chicago. When his backup arrived, Glinowitz was found shot and later succumbed to his injuries. The 3 male suspects, 2 white and 1 black, apparently stripped the officer of his gun and pepper spray after they killed him in cold blood. Joining us now live from Fox Lake in the middle of the manhunt is Fox News' Mike Tobin. Mike, bring us up to speed with the latest. What do we know? I noticed that in the press conference, the officer said there's a 3-pronged approach right now: a search for the perps, evidence recovery, and also an investigation into exactly what happened. Can you bring us up to speed?
And what is missing right now is confirmation of these preliminary reports that 1 suspect has been apprehended. And the detective, Cavelli, stopped short of denying those reports, saying that a suspect indeed was not apprehended, but said that he would have known. They are communicating with the state police, and the source cited was state police. He said they would probably know by now if the state police had picked somebody up, and they just don't have any information that a suspect has been apprehended. He can't confirm it at this time, stopped short of denying it. Beyond that, the manhunt is massive. All of the agencies are out here. It is something that strikes to the heart of the police agencies. You heard Mayor Schmidt when he was talking. He seemed to tremble, tears in the back of his throat, if you will, as he tried to describe this officer known as G.I. Joe, a 30-year-plus veteran on this force. I talked to a cop who knew him for 27 years. He said this was a phenomenal police officer. He said he was very athletic. This is not the guy who would get sloppy and put himself at risk. He would put himself at risk if the situation warranted that. In fact, he said this is the kind of officer you would want as your backup. And we know in this situation that when the backup arrived, they found the officer, nicknamed G.I. Joe, gravely wounded, if not dead, by the time the backup arrived. Very sad situation. He has 4 sons. This officer said that his oldest son just got his driver's license. So instead of this being a new, exciting family for an exciting chapter for this family, it's a time of mourning. It's a time of great loss, a time of great tragedy. Once again, we're talking about an officer being slain in the line of duty, and we're still lacking a lot of information. What exactly led up to this officer being slain? We know that he radioed ahead because he saw some suspicious characters. Suspects described now only as 2 white males and 1 black male are at large to the best of our knowledge, and the description doesn't get any better than that. For the agencies that are out scouring this area, it really is a needle in the haystack. You have many single-family dwellings, you have vacation homes, you have boathouses, you have boats, you have campers. In addition to that, there's been a lot of rain this year. There's been some information that the suspects may just be hunkered down in the tall grass. Guys, back to you in New York.
Juan?
Mike, I was curious about this. When I was reading about the story, it said there was a traffic stop. So was it a simple traffic stop, or I heard you just say a moment ago that the officer had radioed in that he saw suspicious characters? Had he seen suspicious activity? Do we know any details?
That seems to be the information that we're getting through the most solid sources, that he spotted suspicious activity and responded to that. There's some information that there may have been a robbery ongoing, and we're not really getting that through the sources at center mass, the most solid sources. So the information about a traffic stop, that seems to be some of that preliminary information that's kind of falling by the wayside. Possibly a robbery. What we have on the record from the solid sources is just suspicious activity, and that's what this officer, nicknamed G.I. Joe, was responding to.
Mike, I was wondering if you could give us a description of Fox Lake since you're there. I mean, is this a place that would be unusual for something like this to happen?
Yeah, it's a very peaceful area. This is a place where a lot of people from some of the bigger suburbs or from the city will keep weekend homes. It's in an area known as the Chain of Lakes, and as a result, you have a lot of boats out here. So all over the place is a bunch of water, a bunch of restaurants. It's a quaint little town, and the problem when you have all of the boats and you have all the campers, as we discussed before, you have so many hiding places. Remember back to Joe Karzarnaev and the Boston bombing, they found him in the boat. Right. So it's a very difficult situation for the authorities, right? And they're keeping, I should point out, the search to the local area, operating on the idea that these suspects are on foot. If they gain access to a vehicle, the dynamic changes dramatically, particularly with the close access to Wisconsin.
Yes, and also the fact, Mike Heights, Kimberly, that they have potentially, the officer's weapon was missing. So, that is cause for alarm. And I thought you brought up a great point. The fact that there is so many opportunities for cover there. With the boats there, they could certainly hide there until cover of darkness, then be able to make their way on foot. Complications with the weather, but are they pretty certain that not only are they canvassing the area with air cover, are they also have sufficient roadblocks so it's completely stopped off from people, getting in and out? That's the key to secure the perimeter.
Yeah. Right. As we came in, we did not encounter any roadblocks. We did see a lot of police presence. Possibly one roadblock we've heard really from some other news sources, but largely we just see a lot of police presence. We see them with heavy weapons, with long guns, with sidearms at the ready, but no one is taking a bead. No one seems to have any specific information. Aim at that target. Go to that particular building. Go to that particular boat. Look in this particular clump of grass. About the most specific thing we have seen is the police helicopters flying low over the grassy areas, using the rotors to blow the grass away, with spotters on the standing on the skids of the helicopter as they fly low over the grassy areas.
What about the cameras by the boats? That was the other thing I just had for you. Any cameras?
Cameras by the boats? You mean security cameras?
Correct.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of home security, and some people have some home security, some people don't. So usually that's something after the fact, because the data from those cameras is going to be stored locally. If someone has a camera installed at their house, they'll record in the camera or record in a computer or a separate deck on the premise. It doesn't necessarily upload.
But Mike, what about the scene where the officer was shot? Where exactly was that? Was it in a? It looks like there's. I'm very familiar with Fox Lake. I know the area, very rural, but it looks like the cameras that we have fixed are on like a parking lot, maybe a strip mall. Was he shot in an area where, as Kimberly points out, there may be surveillance cameras for those shops?
There was discussion that it was close to a concrete factory, and that seems to be the most solid information I have right now. And he was responding out in that area. And the search has not really been taking place very near the area, at least the concentration, the bulk of the search, I should be careful in how I say that, has not been taking place that close to the area where the officer was shot.
Hey, Mike, it's Gutfeld. So we've seen 23 officers killed by gunfire in the line of duty in 2015. When you're talking to law enforcement out there, is there a sense that something has changed, that the climate has changed, that this isn't business as usual anymore?
Talking with some of the cops, they're a bit exasperated. They said, one of them said 6 in what period of time? You go to work, you try to protect people, and you got the people turning on you. This is a very difficult time for law enforcement. But that being said, just because of the sequence of events, you can't necessarily say that this is linked to the angst against police officers, that is linked to the racial tension. Look at the makeup of the suspects. You're talking about 2 white males, 1 black male. You can't say it's not linked to the ethnic tension, but you can't say it is.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yeah?
I do. I have a question, Mike, because in terms of how they're able to do the search, are they able to use any sniffer dogs or scent dogs or security dogs, given that they don't really have a lead?
There are a number of dogs out here. You have the U.S. Marshal has canines on the scene. A number of local law enforcement agencies have canines on the scene, and they should be pretty effective. But one of the things that's making it tough for the canines, some of them hound dogs, which would be very good at sniffing. But if you don't have specific information about the suspects, you don't have a specific scent to give to the dogs. You can have them go through the brush like a bird dog, just looking for someone, and that's helpful. It's better than not having the canines. But absent of specific scent, even the dogs are having a tough time. You've got the aircraft. When the sun goes down, which will happen in less than 3 hours now, you do have the technology on the aircraft with the FLIR units where they can switch over to heat sensors. That can help. But still, it's very difficult, and they really are searching for a needle in a haystack out here.
Mike, we brought up the fact that it's 2 white males and one black male, and that makes it harder to say whether it's a race thing or not. What about the idea of the Ferguson effect, in which it's not necessarily about police officers pulling back, but more of a brazen type of criminal who knows that the police officers are more reluctant, so they're more aggressive?
Greg, I think there is an element of that out there. People who know that the police officers are going to be more careful, and they're less inclined to be aggressive. But to answer that specific to what has happened out here, I'd really have to speculate.
Hey, Mike, can you tell us about, you mentioned a soft lockdown. Tell us what that is, number one. And also, number two, we noticed that the ATF and the FBI were called in very rapidly on this, within hours. Any significance of that?
I think that would have a lot to do, the rapid response from the federal agents would have to do a lot with the sense of brotherhood, and a lot with the fact that you've got a lot of resources so close by in the city of Chicago. So they're able to help. They want to help very much, and they'll get out to the scene as quickly as they can and use all of the resources that they can out here. And pardon me, Eric, I forgot the first part of your question.
What's a soft lockdown?
Oh, with the schools, a soft lockdown essentially is that the students don't necessarily have to stay in their classroom with their heads on the desk. They can still go from one class to another, but they didn't want them wandering off of campus. And that was with the schools that were outside of the center mass, if you will. And the soft lockdowns were lifted. Those students were allowed to go home. Right here in Fox Lake, when the final bell rang, the students were not allowed to go home. The parents were told, don't come get your kids. The school buses were not operating, and that is just to minimize the potential that the students could wander into a bad situation, or that they could be mistaken for the suspects, that they could get in the way of the police, any number of problems that could develop if you've got more people who pour out in the street.
Hey, Mike, one last thing. I was reading about this and saw that there was an FAA hold on terms of flights over the area. I guess that's because of the helicopters searching the marsh. Is that still in effect?
That is still in effect to the best of our knowledge, and all we see going overhead are the police helicopters, and we do see a few fixed-wing aircraft, and you can see them as search aircraft primarily because they are high-wing aircraft, meaning that the wing is up above the cockpit as opposed to below. If you've ever seen a private plane where people walk up and step on the wing to get inside the aircraft, and that just makes it easier for someone inside of the plane to look out of the cockpit and look down. And you can also spot them because they're going very slow over the area. They'll circle sometimes with one wing pointed to an area that they're looking for, and that makes it easy for the people inside of the plane to get a look at the ground. So moving very slow, a lot of police helicopters in the area. And the remarkable thing that I think we've seen with the police helicopters is the low-tech approach, just flying low with someone standing on the skid of the helicopter blowing the grass around. Mm-hmm. So if, as per some of the information that we got preliminarily, someone had hunkered down into the grass or the lush green vegetation, there's been a lot of rain out here this year, if someone was hunkered down, they would get the grass, the brush would be blown away. They get a chance to see them. You flush them out of the brush.
All right, we're going to leave it right there, Mike. Thank you very much. We're going to